Good day and welcome to another episode of An Issue of Faith. Today we have with us Pastor Ernest Almond of the High Definition Church. How you doing today there, Pastor?
Doing well. Glad to be here.
Good. Pastor Almond is somebody that I ran into in my life walk and kind of run across him doing mentoring and for Duval County Public Schools. So I like to just dabble into that and give us a little bit of your background there, Pastor, and how you got to doing the mentoring. How did we get to where we were in Duval County?
Absolutely. So I'm born and raised in North Carolina. I'm not from here. So I was born in a very small town in eastern North Carolina. The closest way maybe you might be able to reference it, if you got military frame of reference, it's south of Seymour Johnson Air Force Base in Goldsboro. If you like pickles, it is just north of Mount Olive, where Mount Olive pickles come from. All right. So my small town's called Dudley. It's like right in the middle of there.
Wow.
So that's born and raised country boy, just lower middle class neighborhood, black neighborhood, like designed black neighborhood, how they used to be, of course.
Right.
Like if you went across the ditch, there was a white neighborhood.
Right.
So, that's where I grew up, born and raised. My family home the entire time were there. It was me and my parents, and my three sisters are my mom and dad's kids. We have other brothers, older brothers from just my father.
Right.
And so grew up there, did all of my schooling there until I went to college, UNC Chapel Hill. Graduated from there in 2001, did a double major in political science, African American studies. Went into went into teaching right after that got really just a word from the Lord before I was really following the Lord.
Right.
I wasn't following him at all, but he still spoke to me.
Yeah, we all had that path.
We've been down
that path. Yes.
And guided me into the teaching profession. And so 2001, right out of college, I started teaching high school in Durham.
Wow.
And so I was doing that. Until I was doing that. So let's stick to the professional side. I was doing that until I moved down here in Durham County schools until I moved down here in 2013 with my wife. And so got into Duval County Public Schools after a year in KIPP. Was at the Bridge to Success for a couple of years. They kind of did some rearranging in the district like they're always doing. And then I ended up at Terry Parker as the Dean of Students and the site director for 5,000 Role Models.
All right.
After doing about 4 years I received a promotion to become the supervisor of 5,000 Role Models. Excellence. And that's how I ended up being a supervisor when you came on as a site director.
That's cool.
We connected.
Yeah, we did connect. And I must say we both must be gluttons for punishment, right? To actually go, you went directly into teaching straight to high school?
Straight out, they were my age. So
wow, I know, right? To go straight to high school from college?
Yeah.
Man, I know they were looking at you like, dude, come on, we're going to take your lunch money.
Yeah, I eventually had to start, I had to start calling them by last name.
Right.
So they would call me by last name.
Wow.
Because there was such a small age gap.
High school.
Mr., Miss. It was some challenges that first couple of years. But about third year, fourth year, I started really kind of get a groove, and I was teaching younger, and the gap started getting bigger. But that first year, you got some students that are seniors. I taught an upper class, so I had some 18-year-olds. I'm 21, turning 22.
Wow.
I got some 19-year-olds I'm teaching, and so it was
that had to be
interesting, very interesting.
But it also had to be also inspirational. Being that close in age with the students, right? It gave you an opportunity. I would probably see that as the stepping stone to your mentorship, right? Because I know when I was 18, 19 years old, and I would look at guys who were not much older, but 22, 23, 24 years old, I still look at them.
Right.
As an elder and say, well, shoot, man, he's been in the world for a while. I might want to listen. And never did, but, should have. Right. Because you have different life experiences. And, that had to be pretty interesting. Wow, I did not know you started teaching right out of college. Wow, man. And then to come to Duval County, that meant you were still relatively a young man stepping into that role.
Yeah, coming down here was a faith move. Me and my wife were in ministry, a part of a ministry in Durham, North Carolina, and we knew that we were going to move to a city to start a church, lead a ministry. Right. Knew that was part of the DNA of my calling.
Gotcha.
We just didn't know where, and so there were several cities we had thought about, but around June of 2013, I told the story earlier today, we were praying and fasting. We prayed and fasted for 3 days, 3 nights about what city it was going to be that we were going to move to. And God independently confirmed that the city was Jacksonville to both of us, to each of us. And so we mapped out a plan for a year, how we were going to, get ourselves ready to come down to Jacksonville. And what happened is part of her plan, she was going to reach out to the KIPP School Network, which is what she had worked with prior to us getting together, because they have a branch in Eastern North Carolina, or had, they still have it. But they responded to her and said, well, how about now? Because we have a position in the area that you work in that she specialized in, which is college counseling. We have a space for that right now. And so maybe 2 weeks after she sent the email, they flew her down on a Monday. They offered her the job before she got back on the plane.
Wow.
She got back home on Tuesday. They called and asked her to send my resume. And then on Wednesday, they called and offered me a job.
Wow.
And so we thought it was going to take a year to get to Jacksonville. And from the time we heard Jacksonville to the time we were dropping off our stuff in the house that we were renting was 6 weeks.
6 weeks.
6 weeks. Our whole life changed in 6 weeks.
Wow. Now that's phenomenal.
Yeah.
Right. So you talk about a faith walk.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
you actually picked up your whole life
Whole
in
life.
6 weeks to come to. Had you ever been to Jacksonville?
No, I drove through on spring break, senior year in college. Never been to Jacksonville. My wife had never been to Jacksonville. We just trusted, we're trusting God that this is where He was sending
Well,
us.
God must have known that we needed you here. Absolutely. So tell me something. With all of that, and then transitioning into your own ministry, into the High Definition Church.
Yeah.
I never thought I'd see you leave 5,000. You were such a pillar within that one organization. I always looked at you and admired the work that you were doing and the leadership that you were giving to every individual site there. Right. And I mean, it was something to see a young man that was strong in his conviction, right, and also very, very regimental, I should say, and in your leadership. It would never surprise me if I were having a meeting and to see you just show up. And I would always tell the young men in the meeting, always be prepared, because you never know who's going to show up. And no sooner than I would say that, the door would open. I say, see? Right? Yeah. And after a couple of times, they started to get it. So tell me, with that and then into being pastor of a new church in New City, tell me how your faith worked in that whole transitional role, but still having a leadership position. Every pastor should be definitely in a leadership position. So I mean, it's a whole different world from being in school and then being in a ministry or in a church.
Right. So I accepted my call in the ministry less than 6 months after I actually started teaching.
Wow.
So I was in education from 2001 until I just left the district in 2025. I started my ministry. I did my initial sermon in November of 2002. Okay. So I've been in ministry for 20 plus years.
Okay.
And so it's always been something that's been a companion piece to my work in education. And you see it as a ministry. It is a ministry. And so it is a matter of understanding what your role is and what your season is.
Okay.
And so for me, even though I wanted to be full-time in unrestrained ministry, where I wouldn't have to hold my tongue about the gospel, I could just share my faith, that wasn't the season of my life that I was in. And so you have an opportunity to share your faith, absolutely, with students, but you can't be the proactive one that brings it up. It's got to be something they bring up, and then you can expound upon it. And so I was able to build bonds with some families, some students, and just have a life influence on a variety of people, a variety of students. And some of those connections are still alive today, 10, 15, 20 years after I've taught them.
Right.
But I think that even though I was uncomfortable, God was still getting the glory.
Yes.
And I think that's always the case, because if it was up to me, I would have been in full-time ministry within 3 or 4 years of accepted my call.
Okay.
I wouldn't have kept on with public school teaching. I wouldn't
Yes.
have done it. It wouldn't have been my choice. And so I resisted it actively. Like, I didn't come down to Duval County to come and get promotions. I didn't come to Duval County wanting to be a dean of students. I didn't come to Duval County wanting to be a supervisor of any kind of programs. I have never had any educational ambitions. And then, by my third year, my assistant principal was suggesting that I go into being assistant principal. I had no desire to do it. My
Right.
heart was for the kingdom work explicitly. And I know that when you're working in the marketplace, like your ministries in the marketplace, there are some opportunities to be kingdom explicit, but most of it is kingdom implicit. Your character has to be your testimony and open the door. And so I've had to just do that because that's where God has had me. It's not been because that's what it was my first choice or whatever I would want to do. And so it hasn't, because it's been so long, it wasn't necessarily that I was transitioning in any way. I've had to, if I'm going to be faithful with what I'm given, I have to give it my best. And so 5,000 Role Models, for example, I came in, there hadn't been a supervisor in place for over a year. And we were on the cusp of the pandemic.
Yes.
So the pandemic hit a month after I got the position. I
Wow.
started February 28th. March, spring break, we don't come back.
That's right.
So
Absolutely. I
I'm
remember
working
that.
from home
Right.
until we eventually go back. So there was no onboarding process. It was just learning on the fly, figuring out what to do. And then maybe after my first year, we did a massive expansion from 17 to 30 plus schools.
Right.
And so I had to, and it was based on a grant. And so I had to create systems that never existed in order for us to remain compliant to that grant. And so I'm not going to complain about it. It's like it's what has to be done. And since I have the ability, God's anointed me for the season, whether I'm comfortable or not, I got it done. And so me and Mr. Hall, who's
yes, sir.
two-man team,
Yes, sir.
we were able to just work a system that would sustain the growth, but also prove our case for the work that we were doing so that we could have more opportunities.
Excuse me. With that being said, that's why I was saying I was always admire your leadership, especially within that program itself. If Dr. Nix would say, he would say it would be the book of Almond that you're out there living, and your life has always been a testimony. I didn't ever have to ask you about your faith, right? Even in your presence or outside of your presence, because it showed just your life, just the way that you carried yourself, and especially in a leadership position. And I think I'm still blown away by that 6 weeks from Carolina to Jacksonville. 6 weeks.
Yeah.
That means that God had something in store for you, and it was pretty much urgent, right? Because here in the city, by the time you were coming, you could see that we were having some issues with our young men. We were having at that time the gangs were real active. I know that I had a couple of young men in the site that I was running that I was actually trying to pull away from that gang lifestyle. And it, tragically to say that one of them actually lost his life about a year and a half later. And those were the things that we were trying to address here within the city. And you were one of the leaders at that time with the 5,000 that we all looked up to. I mean, the actual site directors and the role models. Because I would always say, don't let, like I say, don't let Mr. Almond see you out and about, right? And you don't fit all of the standards that we've laid before you. Because I'm going to be the first person to hear about it. The teachers, and I tell you, and then the teachers would do the same thing. But see, there's something that we lose touch of, something we lose sight of, and that's the faith that we must carry going into this new age with this new generation. And I believe that God placed you here for a specific reason. And this is something I didn't know, and you just told me it's something that you're still doing. So you do Christian hip hop.
Yes. Yep. It's been since since 2002. I've been rapping on stages since 1997.
If I had some more time, I ask you to drop some bars, but but I don't want. And it's odd because that's one of the genres of music that I really enjoy. I make sure that I introduce my children to it because we're in a whole different time. We have to try to reach them where they are, and I mean with you being in that arena, how has that been able to actually to strengthen your own ministry? With high definition.
Well, so I don't know about strengthening my ministry just on the basis of being artist, but it's something that I've carried with me off and on, sometimes more on than off, but it's something that I've carried with me for decades. And it's something that really aided me when I was in youth ministry. It's not something that I really employed in my educational side because you may not know, but like when I first started, it was still very much a taboo to rap in churches and rap about
Yes,
Jesus.
yes,
And
it
so I
was.
was going into churches having to explain, like, this is for the young people. You adults, please listen to my lyrics.
Right.
Listen to what I'm saying. You may not feel the beat. You may be used to hymns or whatever, but I'm trying to reach them.
Right.
And so it wasn't something that I incorporated into my teaching. Like now, 20 years later, I mean, there's artists everywhere. Some of the biggest artists in the world are Christian hip hop,
Right.
Christian hip hop affiliated. And so it's a completely different world now. But as far as me, it's just a piece of me. It's not a gimmick. It's just like who I am. I do this. I preach. I teach. I rap. Like I do what's in me basically, and I pour that out as I have opportunity. It's not anything that I marketed well. I put it like that.
Okay. Okay.
And like I said, it's not something that I've tied into my educational pursuits,
Right.
and so it's something that's exclusively used in my ministry, and so it's something that I really got back into more heavily over the last 2 or 3 years. I released an album this year.
You released an album.
Yeah.
Are you dropping albums?
Vintage Season this year.
Vintage Season.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's
Okay.
under the Spit Life Media imprint. And
Under the what?
Spit Life Media.
Spit. I like that. Spit Life.
Yeah, and so the whole goal,
Spit
like
life.
the idea of vintage season is going back to it. Like you think about wine as a vintage.
Right.
And so you're talking about like there was a quality to it in a year past. And so from the spiritual implication, it's looking at, for many of us, we get into, as we get older, kind of like a groove of walking in faith and not a fire of walking in faith.
Wow.
So
Yeah, that's
reconnecting
hot.
with the fire so that we don't fall into the category of lukewarm that we're being warned against in Revelation, where you're not cold nor hot, you're lukewarm, I'll spit you out.
Right.
And so for many of us, we get so consumed with the affairs of our lives that we lose the fire for our purpose because we've got to maintain so many things that are part of our abundance.
Ooh, that is so true.
And so for me,
That is so true.
I've got married, I've got 3 kids, we've got a house, we've got bills, we've got all these other things. And so I could very tangibly at different points in my life feel that fire was drained from me and from my walk, and then coming to an understanding in this latest season of my life, what needs to happen to recapture that fueled part of the writing of the album.
Right. And wow. I can't believe you dropped an album.
Yeah, I'm working on the next one.
And you're working on the next one.
Yeah, there was a gap of 20 years between releases. I released the album in 05, a mixtape in 07, and have not released anything officially until this year. But I can, if you give my phone,
bars,
I can.
16 bars. Behind to my earth. I couldn't even get that far.
Yeah.
I'm still rapping for rappers' delight. So
My influences are your late 90s rappers, your mid 90s. My first influence was EPMD, then into Tribe, De La Soul. All of those were my major artistic influences early on.
And with you saying that, those artists all had a strong faith base. I know De La Soul did, and EPMD was more educational and political. And oh my gosh, who else was out there?
Not really.
You sure?
Not really. No. I mean, not. Like,
How about
De La was strong pronouncing faith either. Like Tribe was pronounced Muslim, their Muslim faith.
that's a faith.
Yeah, no, but like EPMD never, and
How
like
about how
so
about
rarely.
how about what was the name of that group? Public Public
Public Enemy
Enemy.
was more militant, but not faith based. No.
So tell me, with that, what direction do you see yourself going with all of the things that you have going on with the
So when it comes to everything I'm doing, the goal is obedience. I left the district
mm,
at the end of the fiscal year, June 30th, and knowing that the skills, the talent, the organizational mind that I was using for 5,000 role models was that was space in my mental pie that I could not use in my ministry
mm,
because I was dedicating it to this, which is a
okay,
worthy cause. No problems with that. But the challenge is when I think about and pray about what it was that God sent me here to do, it always comes back to higher definition church, like this ministry that He's brought me down here to launch and start and be faithful to. And so
mm,
my number one priority is establishing firm and strong systems for our church
okay,
and the different operations, because we're a small, very small church, and we're in our current building for 2 years, but we've been operating for 10 years
okay,
in the city. And so really establishing those systems, raising up leaders among the people that we have,
mm,
and then beyond that, excuse me, is where I'm trying to focus in on the different areas where my expertise could be a benefit. Consulting, coaching, public speaking, still, of course, music.
mm,
I wrote a book 6 years ago. I started working on my second book this summer. And so utilizing my creativity and my connections to hopefully just be a blessing across the board. There's lots of organizations I believe that I could be a benefit to as far as
okay,
just like consulting, helping them see things, because I had to build so many systems for 5,000 role models.
right,
I can see areas of need to help things be more productive and more focused. And so opportunities to do that for people, opportunities to do that for whether it be schools or organizations or nonprofits, whoever. My goal is to be able to do that. I'm also going to be not dabbling, but putting my foot in the life coaching ring
okay,
with some of some of the things that I've learned about how to affect change in your own life from having an impact in people's lives for 20 plus years on the ministry side and the education side, trying to help people take true steps, like gain ground toward their destiny.
and that's something that a lot of people take for granted, but we have a lot of people, young and old, who need life coaching skills because the environment that we live in currently, a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people are not prepared for or don't know how to handle it as far as day-to-day life.
Mm-hmm.
I can understand that there are some stressors on our lives, and I don't want to see as our community fall victim to those stresses. So we need more people out there that can give people life coaching skills in order to navigate their way through, I would say, arenas that they've never been involved with before. High definition. I think that's a good name, especially for a young church that is going to continue to grow within the city. I see you doing some great things, man. I've seen you do some great things, especially with our young men and women. Because we had with the 5,000, they had to set a certain type of standard, and I see those young men. I still keep in touch with some of them today, and I watch the way that they treat ladies, and that was something that we were very, very heavy on. I have always said you should treat any woman the same way you would treat your mother. Hopefully, none of them would be bad to their mother, but I mean
That's
that's one thing that I would always say. Also, I hope
mm-hmm.
y'all don't treat your moms bad because then we really have a bigger problem. So, Pastor, I really, really thank you for coming on. I pray that God continues to strengthen you and guide you,
Mm-hmm.
especially using you. He knew what He had in store for you, man, to move you 6 weeks.
Yep.
Wow, I mean that's breakneck speed, and especially to going and coming into a city like Jacksonville at that time. Yeah, God has a very special purpose for you, sir, and I pray that He continues to work with you in your ministry greatly, and that you continue to be a bold figure within the city of Jacksonville. So we thank you. And with that being said, once again, let me remember we have the NAACP Freedom Fund Luncheon October 29th. If you are interested, please go to the NAACP Jacksonville website at jacksnAACP.org and get all the information. So Jacksonville, peace, blessings.